Okay, tonight I am going to be talking about ride sharing in San Francisco because there are a few problems going on. If you read the article, you can see it in full detail. But the reality is, ride sharing is not sustainable in San Francisco. We have Uber, we have Lyft. There were a couple of other companies that started, they all went out of business. So right now, those are the two that we have. There are a lot of things going back and forth about how the drivers aren't really making enough money to survive on it. People complaining about the costs, all this. Well, I have been driving for rideshare companies since 2012. So I have a good background on this, and I'm going to tell you about it today. Right now, I think we're coming on a time when things are going to change, probably within the next year. So Uber, which everyone knows, as a matter of fact, you watch TV shows, people say things like, I'll call an Uber. It's become like Kleenex. It's just a generic word for getting a ride to get somewhere. Well, there's a problem. In San Francisco, both Uber and Lyft have decided to start competing with public transportation. Now, the problem with public transportation is that it is always, regardless of what city in the United States, it is always subsidized by the local governments. It never turns a profit. Nobody's getting rich from it except for perhaps some of the drivers. But this is a bad choice for Uber and Lyft to go after public transportation because it doesn't make money. They aren't making money. As a matter of fact, Uber and Lyft to this day have not made a dime. They're getting investors, giving them money left and right, but they're still not getting any profit. Uber, as a matter of fact, when their revenues increase, their expenditures actually increase. In 2015, Uber lost $2 billion. In 2016, it's been reported that they're losing between 2.8 and $3.8 billion. And currently, according to news reports, in San Francisco, Uber Pool, where you get to share a ride with other people, they're losing $1 million per week. Just in San Francisco, not in the entire US, not in the entire world. $1 million per week just in San Francisco. Now, here's some other things is back in the early days, we used to get paid $3.50 per mile. Because of competition between Uber and Lyft now, the price has dropped down to $1.15 per mile. $1.16 per mile for Lyft, actually. It's not that much, but what they're doing now is if you book a ride with either Uber or Lyft, they give you the price up front. As long as I'm taking you from point A to point B, your price won't change. How I get there doesn't matter. Because as a driver, they pay you per minute and per mile, as I mentioned. Now the problem is I drove for Uber this morning. I gave 4 rides, and now Uber gives you a breakdown of how much the driver pays, how much the rider pays, how much the driver gets, and in the end, how much Uber makes on each ride. Of the 4 rides I gave, Uber only made a profit on 1 ride. Total of those 4 rides, Uber lost $3.67. Think about that. I'm just one driver. Now, there are 45,000 drivers who come to San Francisco every day driving for Uber and Lyft. If you, let's just round it down. I'll say $32 instead of 32.16, so that comes out to $16 per hour. If you have 45,000 drivers during that time, and each one of them is costing the company $16 per hour in 24 hours, that is, and I wrote the number down, I believe it's $1.47 million per day. This is not sustainable. They are not getting any government subsidies. This is just for San Francisco, too, that I'm talking about. So it's not working out. And on top of that, there's a few changes that have come about recently. First off, General Motors, we all know General Motors, of course. They've been investing heavily in San Francisco. They invested $500 million in Lyft. Not a whole lot of money, but still, they got themselves a seat on Lyft's board of directors. They even offered to purchase Lyft for $9 billion. I think it was 9. It might have been 6 billion. But either way, whatever the amount, Lyft said that's not enough. So General Motors makes cars. General Motors also bought a company called Cruise Automation that is working on driverless cars. Now, the whole thing with rideshare is that driverless cars is where everything is going. So you have General Motors that not only makes cars, but has a company that takes cars they make and turns them into driverless cars. They have a lot of low overhead, basically, on producing cars that can be driven for rideshare companies. General Motors also is sitting on a huge amount of capital that they could write checks for. If this isn't good enough, now Google, the big guns, their driverless car company Waymo, just suddenly did a hookup with Lyft. Now, Waymo is supposedly going to be providing driverless cars to Lyft. Now, Google is just sitting on way too much money. They are not a lot of people talk about it often, but Google just tends to like to toss out money like crazy when they find a technology that they think will expand their profitability. So I am thinking eventually Google is going to buy Lyft. If Google does buy Lyft, then for Uber, it is pretty much game over. Uber has, according to reports, they're sitting on a capital of around, I don't know, I think it was somewhere around 11.8 billion. And they're theoretically bleeding out $1 billion every 3 months because of their competition with Lyft. The problem is that because of all the current news about the problems going on with Uber, their investors are kind of backing off a little bit. But Lyft now has General Motors investing in them. They have Google investing in them. And both of those companies have substantially higher amounts of capital to play with. So I am theorizing, keep your eye on this, within, say, a year, Lyft will be bought by either General Motors or by Google. I'm assuming probably Google will buy them and General Motors will do some sort of hookup with Google. Because at the moment, Google's driverless cars, I believe they have it. I don't know who they have a deal with, but they're getting their cars from someone. General Motors will probably offer them at a better price. And you're going to see a big hookup there. and that's going to change things. Will rideshare disappear completely? No, it can't. Too many people in San Francisco rely on rideshare. It's crazy. I mean, I am giving people rides just up to the local mini metro station. I give people rides to work every day. Same people. I get them over and over again. There are people that use this because they dislike the San Francisco Metro Transit Authority, Muni. So we'll see what happens. But what I'm suggesting is keep your eye out. I think Uber is going to become one of those things that you're going to talk about, like, VHS videotapes. Hey, remember back when you used to go to Blockbuster? Oh, Blockbuster. Uber. Uber is going to be the Blockbuster of 2010. The teens. I think it's going to be going away, and I think it's going to be going away soon. So keep your eyes open, because it's going to happen.